Hey everyone, welcome to the LIBERcast, and I'm happy to have Cory with me tonight talking about something that is never talked enough. It's never told enough. You know, slavery and what it means. And we have I think people talk about it, but I think we need a definition, a more deeper definition. And
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to bring with Cory is abolitionism. Abolitionism. My
Yeah.
French. Sorry, my French.
No,
Okay.
it's all good. It's been a word that hasn't been used for quite some time, so it's not your fault.
So, uh, if you want to
Mhm.
plug your website and think we can do it there if you want to, and talk shortly your story a little bit so we can know where you're coming from.
Okay, so all my links are on taplink.cc/Cory Health. You'll see I'm a video content creator. I'm an author. I'm a lecturer, whatever, a writer. I'm somebody who's very passionate about the world that we live in. I see that we live in obviously like a tyranny. If you just look around, you see all that's happening. People are starting to notice their gas prices are rising. Things are just not right. Okay, so whether you think it's tyrannical or not, this government, that president, don't matter to me. What we have is tyrannical in our world because the prices are rising. People are going crazy. They're fighting over politics. We have chaos. We have confusion. Nobody really knows what's happening. And even if somebody wants to elect someone new, they're like, I don't know who to elect. I don't like any of these guys. And I don't like the system that I'm in. A lot of people, don't like the governments that they reside in. They don't like the lockdowns. They don't like all these impositions that are being forced upon them. So it's only natural to bring up tyranny or slavery in relationship to that when we realize how deep the rabbit hole goes, how much we research into this. And maybe, to some extent, I'm talking to the choir. I'm talking to people who've done that research, or people who feel like, yeah, it is tyrannical. And that's why today I want to get deeper into perhaps the action, which is abolitionism, and why it's so important and why it's not focused on nearly as much as I think it should be. And there's a lot of things that I can particularly comment on that isn't really talked about. But abolitionism is a movement that started particularly in the 1800s. And, I'm somebody just bringing that back. I call myself a modern abolitionist. That's the only title I like to use nowadays. I could go through the other list of titles, but like, hey, I'm just a human being. Like I said, I'm just sharing my heart, my passion, and my story, how I got to where I am. Um, it, I think everybody has like a unique story. Some people get there through experience, like hardship, a lot of problems that help them find a solution and find a purpose, which I think is great because that tells you, there's more to life than, those those deep, dark corners of the room that you find yourself in. Like people are, the world gets to their heads. They start doing drugs and all sorts of things, and I could relate to them in the sense that it's like, hey, yeah, the world is pretty bad. I can see why people would resort to those things. Do they have to? Well, that's a different story. But like, my gosh. And perhaps certain drugs and certain medications are causing some of these problems. Perhaps the media is creating more fear in people's minds. Perhaps the independent media is contributing to that by putting fear in people's minds, or saying, oh, you need to get prepared. Oh, there's going to be a collapse. Oh, there's going to be, and it will add on to anybody. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's a researcher or somebody who's not. They're going to feel that energy. That energy is going to be felt. And I think what is ultimately necessary is that people realize the root cause of the problem. They try to find that with knowledge, with insight, with patience. They're not trapped in fear where they can't take in knowledge. They're trapped in love, which isn't a trap. It's expanding. It's not contracting. It expands. It says, hey, I'm willing to take in new information. I'm willing to be conscious and look to see and find what are those answers? What is that purpose? So when you're in that dark corner, you see some light, and that light, shines. It's bright. You're in a dark cavern, and that one little light is like, wow, now I can actually see something. You walk closer to that light. You find that light. You bring that light to others. It helps you escape the cavern. It may help other people escape that dark cavern, that dark place. In Freemasonry, they talk about darkness being the lack of knowledge and light being the presence of knowledge. That's what we're here doing as facilitators, as teachers, which I can also consider myself and yourself, is we're just facilitating the knowledge of nature, or the natural knowledge that was destined for humanity, to say, hey, yeah, we're free. Because slavery was not ended because some people were like, well, it's a better preferred way of living. They said it's because it's meant for human beings. We're meant to be free. We're meant to be free from the chains of others. We're meant to be free from the restraints of others and what they put upon our minds, our bodies, our souls. It doesn't matter. It all belongs with us, does it not? That's ownership. And you need to have responsibility to have ownership, and then ownership for sovereignty. And sovereignty ensures the end of slavery. That's it. That's the equation. It's very simple. But how many people really practice that on a day-to-day basis? I can say, as a teacher, I should walk the talk, and I do my best to create freedom, to help other people realize this. And it's powerful information. It really ultimately helps a lot of people. So when I say there's action steps that could be done, I absolutely think, yeah, there's action steps that can be done. And there's a lot of people who need to learn what those actions are, or where those resources are. And creating an abolitionist movement is essentially what I've done through Nature is the Answer, and through collaborating with many other movements. I mean, I see, like, why not have this conversation in the first place? So much of independent media is so focused on what rises to the surface, like, oh, this news story, oh, this news story, but they don't ask the underlying questions, like, should we be playing into the two-party system, or should we look at the whole system by its nature? Should we be talking about the latest news story, or should we be talking about deeper philosophical ideas that contribute to every one of those news stories, such as the idea that anybody has the right to do violence to another, or anybody has the right to enslave another? But that right only 200 years ago, and which lasted over 6,000 years, everybody thought was perfectly legitimate. And we got rid of that through chattel slavery. But what other forms of slavery still exists? The abolitionists tell us that there's other forms. And I'm very serious about that. I think it's very important we listen to not only their words, but the words of so many people from the past, and realize that they were trying to do something. Now, how do we get that out? We have mass information, we have mass technology. It should be easier now to get this information to people. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's my introduction, is because that's what I'm doing online. That's why I put myself out there, because I have a moral obligation to share it with others. There's people in the past who did way greater work than me. Man, it's like, you look at them, it's like, how they have all the time to do this and this and that? But they did, because they were passionate just as much as we were. And maybe they were attacked by the governments, by the states, by all the people who said, oh, well, you're wrong. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you think a world can work without slavery? Oh, come on. Slavery has always existed. No, they proved them wrong. And I think,
I just want to add to what you're saying. I mean, slaves exist solely because people believe they're slaves.
Mental slavery. So Gandhi,
even in the cotton field, people thought they were conditioned to be slaves and to submit to their master. And I can't remember who brought this up. And even this Stockholm syndrome that is deep in our the recess of our minds, that our parents and our grandparents and your greater great and great grandparents were afflicted of, these terms like nobility and things like that makes us just. I want to bring it back once again, because it fits perfectly in Quebec. In Canada, there's different province, and province means land of the vanquish. This is what province means. It's like this is where the slave are. They are the colonies. And I had this conversation with Brendan earlier about the colonies of England and all these things that kept us in deep ignorance about all the things you just told us. Simple truth.
Yes, very simple. It's
Very
not that hard to
simple truth.
understand that you own yourself, is it? Well, it could be if you're wrapped in a system where you think that you should give away your ownership in certain circumstances, or you say, oh, there's exceptions here and there. Like, oh, these people are naturally inferior. Oh, these people have more rights than others. Oh, these people have less rights than others. Well, in 1776, we said, oh, people are born with inalienable rights by nature's God, through the laws of nature, to which nature's God owns. And that led to the abolition of chattel slavery. Just so happens because they looked at it and they said, wait, you say all people are equal, then how come the slaves aren't as equal as us? They're human beings. They're totally capable. They're in the capacity to know right versus wrong. They're in the capacity to have rights, to be like the fellow man. You never gave them a chance. You never taught them how to read. You never taught them how to write. And they didn't know how to learn, so they couldn't ever know how to say no.
Yep.
And once you take away that ability of knowledge, then you take away all the ability of action. Then you take the ability away of abolitionism, because abolitionism says no. That's all abolitionism means. It means to abolish something. It means to get rid of something. So that's referring to mainly abolitionism, the 19th century abolitionists who called themselves abolitionists. A lot of people, you talk to them about slavery, they might think, I don't know, Civil War, African Americans. It's gone on way longer than that, 6,000 years across every part of the world, right? Slavery has always existed pretty much as long as government has existed. Sumeria was the first form of systemic slavery and the oldest form of government. Just so happens, I guess, to be a coincidence that they create a class system and conquer people by going to war with other peoples and, making them surrender themselves unto the king who has the divine right to rule because he's a priest class.
You're talking about priesthood here. It's
Yes.
nothing has changed since this time. Only the presentation
language
of it.
Yeah, the language has changed, but the ritual remains the same. It's a ritual. Anything we do on a day-to-day basis and we say we partake in is a ritual, right? It's just something that we constantly do and everybody does it. It's like, okay, everybody's got to vote now and everybody's got to put this person to office and, oh, you got to wear this special title, a special character. But is that really human? Is that really natural? Is that meant for the human condition? Because simple questions of morality, is it natural? Is it healthy? Is it real? Is it based in reality? Will debunk the whole system. Any system that is unnatural, not meant to be, not healthy, not real. All these words essentially correlate with one another. So when you have abolitionism, you're getting rid of something that does not belong, something that is not natural, not healthy, not right. So you're saying this doesn't belong because, well, man created it. See, evil can only take something that already exists, something that's good and natural, and twist it to their will and turn it into something evil. That is what evil does. Tolkien even says it too. In fact, Tolkien said the greatest form of change is abnegation, which is refusal or denial. That's the greatest form of change. Why is that? Because when you say no, that's the most powerful word. Mark Pastor calls it the lost word in Freemasonry. But it's the lost word because it has a lot of power to it. You're making a conscious decision for yourself. You're thinking for yourself. You're saying, this is where I am. This is who I am. This is where I stand. So you are conscious. And again, that's a position of love. Because you love yourself enough to not put yourself through something, or you love yourself or someone else enough to not put them through something. You're making a choice with knowledge. And again, the slaves were not taught how to read or write, and they didn't have any responsibilities. Life was easy, but it wasn't natural for them to have. They weren't having necessarily fun in the process. If they disobeyed, you get whipped, disobey. Oh, well, you have to make sure you have a receipt, a permission to go here to there. Do you want to live in a world like that? Because we're increasingly living in a world today where people have to get permission to move, to own something, to go place to place. That's exactly what the slaves had to do in the 1800s, but people are not going to recognize that, even as simple as that is. And even to permit that, because then it's going to keep growing and more people are going to think that's permissible. If any violence is permissible, you say, well, violence to one person is violence to everyone. Well, yeah, if that's the case, then we have a universal morality. Then we can say, hey, there's a natural law that says you should not harm anybody. Do unto others what you want done unto you.
Yep.
But for so long, we suppress that, or we make exceptions to basic morality that most people know. And we do that through statism, which is mental slavery. Super, super important.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit and
Sure.
include natural law. And in my opinion, this is the principle of correspondence.
Hmm.
I think um, what people have inside them, their doubt, their anxiety. I think it's literally building this system. It's reinforcing it every time. Every time there's a generation of kids that are wasted by the educational institutions. They're reinforcing it every time because people don't know and people won't know. I'm telling you, brother. I'm telling you. I told to people, and people, some of them told me, I like it the way it is.
Yes,
I
they're willing
I
slaves.
I I like it. Even I
Hmm.
have to pay taxes and have a
Peaceful
licenses.
security.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we all know that security doesn't exist. It's very
Peaceful
clear.
slavery. It's fake
Yeah,
security. It's peaceful slavery instead
yeah,
of dangerous freedom, as that old fashion quote goes from one of the founding fathers. It's super important. If
yeah,
people are willing to give away their ownership, say, "Oh, you be responsible for only something I can be responsible for," just for they can have their little security, their little safety, their false sense of it, because now they're giving it away. That person could abuse them. That person could do all sorts of things to them. And people learn from that. People learn over time. It's like, wait, I just gave away my life. I just signed away my life. Oh no, what did I do? Like, oh, I wonder why. Maybe it's because you actually consented to some extent.
yeah,
Oh, your freedoms are going away. Why are my freedoms going away? Oh, maybe it's because you're contributing to it to some extent and you don't
yeah,
realize that you are. You weren't conscious at the time of when you signed that agreement. You weren't conscious at the time of when you participated or voluntarily consented to the system by your vote, by your participation, right? Because it's technically you never consented. You were just born into this world. You're
yeah,
born into a government. You never actually consented, but you were trained and indoctrinated into it to where you consent for yourself. You train your own mind into believing their lies, into believing that you deserve to have a slave master. The same exact way a slave is born into a slave family and thinks they're meant to be a slave and can't see any other reality out of that. So when somebody says to them, hey, you could be free, they're like, what is freedom? What is that? I never I never learned what that is. I don't know how it is. It sounds dangerous to me because I've never lived it before. I'd rather just keep living the life I've been living because I'm used to it. I know what it is. But does that
yeah,
mean they can live a better life? They can definitely live a better life if they were free and they could have their own possessions and they can teach people, other things and they can find their destiny. They can innovate. They can create great things in the world instead of being on the cotton plantation all day picking cotton, or like a lot of people nowadays just working the hard grind of everyday jobs nonstop and not being able to do what they truly love, whether it's art, music, or something else. And people are like, how are you going to feed the hungry? How is the poor going to be fed? Like, yeah, you can come up with that all day. But let's look at how governments have treated that for the past, 6,000 years of experience. Let's look at the number one cause of unnatural death, democide, which is death by government. And then people are going to say, well, yeah, it's like private crime. There's always going to be people, murderers. Yeah, duh. That's reality. The difference is people are going to see them as wrong. They're not going to say, oh, well, that's okay because they're authority. Oh, that's okay because they're a politician. Oh, because a law says so. No, that's ridiculous because it's unnatural. It's not based in reality. See, abnegation or abolitionism, again, to abolish, to get rid of something, is very powerful because if you refuse or deny the truth, you will create a life changing scenario in a negative way. But if you refuse or deny the lies or the superstitions, you will create a life changing scenario in a positive way. So it's dependent upon what you actually don't want in your life. Who you accept into your life is, well, going to influence your health, right? And how you go about in your life. Are you going to invite people into your life that you don't really like, that people that you don't really know? Because all these politicians, I bet most people don't know them, actually. They think they know them. They watch some political speeches and they say some things that speak to their hearts. They don't know them. These are foreign people. And they're also working for foreign corporations nonetheless. They don't represent your interest. Only you can represent your own interest. Your
yeah,
voice is not your vote. Your voice is your voice. Don't twist the words. Don't twist reality, because that's what they do. They'll say security comes through only government. They'll say freedom comes by order, which only comes by government. They twist the notion that freedom is chaos and it's not order, and that order, essentially through slavery, is what's necessary for freedom.
Incredible.
That is essentially what they're doing through their systems of control. And it's evident when you break down the definitions, as we have on, and I have on my channel, and you have with a lot of your talks. It is evident as you come to study it. But that's if people put the time into it. I see people on social media and people putting out a lot of videos, a lot of independent media. They're like attacking this group and attacking that group, this country, that country. Oh, this event. Oh, this government did it. Oh, that government did it. You know who actually did it? Order followers, statists, people who are following the orders of some few people who call themselves authorities, proclaim to have a special right that other people don't have. And then those people who give them that power, that's us, we're the ones really to blame, because they're few and we're millions. We're so much compared to these few people, and yet we still give them power. The change could happen rather quickly. And that's what happened in the 1800s. The abolitionists did not want to be seen as crazy. They didn't want to say to the slaves, like, hey, go beat up your master, go free yourself, or, oh, we're going to help give you arms so you can escape your master. They didn't want to promote violence because they didn't want to be seen as violent. In fact, a lot of them were pacifists. They wanted to educate people, which is a very good idea. But that being said, once they realized that the slaves had to free themselves with firearms or with self-defense, they were like, man, that was an act of courage. We can't say that's bad. I mean, he freed himself. Like, what are we going to say that's bad? And then that made a demonstration to the whole world to see, like, wait, you know, they're capable of freeing themselves. They're capable of showing that they're free. I mean, what else are they capable of? Are they chaotic because they killed their slave master? No, they're meant to be free. They realized that. They learned that. That's a powerful step of consciousness. And you can't take away that energy once it's seen. Because right now there's a lot of, I told you the common law assembly is working on things to try to free people. That's a powerful energy. You can't take that out. When people realize how important that is, the natural law community, what we're doing with educating people, it's powerful information. Anybody who looks into it, that once you get onto it and you start understanding what we're talking about, it's like, this is more powerful than any independent media I've ever seen. I'm a researcher. I've been out there. I've seen everything you could think of, from 9/11 to whatever. And this is only thing that hits at the root is understanding statism, or understanding slavery. Essentially, I don't have to say natural law. I don't have to say statism. It is just slavery. Because if you want to be free, what's the opposite of freedom? It's slavery. That's it. End of story. What is slavery? The claim of ownership over somebody else that does not belong to you. It's the same thing as if you want to do violence to someone. Does that person deserve to be violated upon? Do their rights belong to you? Well, if they're not your slave, then don't do violence to them. And are they supposed to be your slave? Is anyone supposed to be your slave? No, only you can own yourself. That is reality. So, like I said, evil twists what is real, what is based in reality. And so abolitionism says get rid of the evil that belongs, because the answers are already here with us. We were born with them. We were given it. Natural law, natural rights, our natural body to heal. All we got to do, add in the good, crowd out the bad. And the bad is just added in. They add poisons to our food supply. They add all this stuff. And people know about it. You can't hide it. The internet has provided so much freedom and innovation and knowledge that it's all out there if people want it at their fingertips. And the censorship is now attacking a lot of people because, well, it keeps people in their slavery even more. It keeps them away from the knowledge that will free them. But people are waking up because they're using the tools. They can't escape this magic of consciousness, this use of willpower to say, I'm going to find out what the truth is. I'm going to find out what is going on in the world. And so that's the human power, is the power of saying, I'm going to find out more. I'm going to find the truth. I'm going to get rid of the evil. A lot of people want to find the truth, but they don't want to get rid of the evil, or they don't know what evil to get rid of. Right? They might do things in their personal life, but at some point in time, human beings need to take their ground, stand their ground, say no. And they need to have a community, people, just one town at least, stand up and say, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to live my life. I'm not going to do anything, any statist act. I'm just going to live my life. I'm not going to have any false presumptions or claims or corporations get involved with my life. No, they're not talking to me. They're not addressing me. They're addressing my straw man, my name in all capital letters. They're addressing somebody who they think is a slave. And I'm not a slave. I'm a free person. I'm a human being, So if you want to get rid of war, then get rid of the root cause. If you want to get rid of democide, then get rid of the root cause. That's abolitionism. You're abolishing something that doesn't belong. And the root cause is all the same. Statism, mental slavery, the worst
we
form.
would need, first of all, even if you give the information to the people, it's only one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the post psychological era of humans. Okay, so there we have a deeper problem than this schism, this split in the mind of the people, and you have a lot of pathology in society and civilization that they're not healed ever. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so to make people understand that they're not slaves, we would have to heal the psyche of millions of people.
Yes.
The work is huge.
One great work.
You cannot force someone to do the shadow work. You cannot force someone to do this great work.
Mm-hmm.
It's against the idea of it. If you want
Right.
to stay a sleepwalker, then stay a sleepwalker. It's your choice. But I don't want to be prisoner. I don't want to be trapped by your beliefs, and this is where it's coming from. Everything means it is coming from the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So slavery, there, your this is what you're proposing. There is, it's a really good, but a really hard path to take,
Well,
because
it's one they can't refute.
we have to take back. First of all, we would have to take back the generations of kids,
Yes.
and then to train them into trivium and natural law and self-defense and how to make food and things like that. So
Sure. That could be part of the process. It's not going to hit at the root cause, but
yeah,
it can help in the process a lot. Growing food, helping with mental clarity, and learning how to be self-sufficient and actually practice freedom. Yes, absolutely. But
exactly.
with a
Exactly.
simple idea of freedom, with the simple idea of understanding slavery, I believe everything could come into place. It really is simple. I have 4 simple steps of how you can get to freedom, a free world. It just, of course, those steps, this take a lot of courage and it takes a lot of organization, which is why I create a movement, which a lot of people in independent media also don't talk about or they don't share. And I'm always encouraging. Like I got a list of, I got a whole bunch of flags in my background because I'm willing to help out a lot of people. I'm willing to collaborate with a lot of people. We need change by collaboration. That's why I created a summit and I created a newspaper. We need a lot of people to get together. Yeah, and there's the website for Nature is the Answer, which I consider, like I said, an abolitionist movement. It doesn't have to be the only movement, doesn't have to be the movement, doesn't have to be everything like the way I present it. I'm not asking for that. I want people to customize it. But at least if we have one resource that everybody resorts to or shares across their pages, then our voices are amplified. See, the one great work is great, but it's limited to the content creators within that one great work. And I consider there to be a lot more content creators outside of the One Great Work Network. A lot. And they're doing fantastic work. And, it's like, well, hey, why not encourage the public to make their own content, to get involved? And I think that's why a movement is the most essential and the most needed for independent media. Can we not all agree that freedom is essential? So then why not just unite on that itself? And what I found to be the most unifying, the most universal of all things is nature itself. Whether you're talking about natural medicine or natural law or natural rights or natural reality, that what is natural is something that promotes nature. What is real is something that promotes reality. What is healthy is something that promotes health. These things go hand in hand. And so, we're not using the system, we're creating our own. We are embracing the natural system that has always been here. Beyond all the illusions and all the things that were put in front of nature to distract us ultimately from nature or from reality, which, our nature, it includes instincts. Yes, it includes our self-preservation, our social Darwin. No, no, no. All of this has been perverted. All of this has been twisted into their systems of control. Once you cut out statism, you cut out the ability for anybody to have power. It does not matter how much people decide to use their instincts, because now you're all automatically encouraging people to be responsible, to take control of their own lives, to use their moral higher brain consciousness or conscience, whatever you want to call it, their reason, their intelligence, right? Because that is within our ability as well, not just instinct. And we cannot forget about either one. This all makes us as part of our nature. And so to understand human nature in relation to the nature of our world is to understand that I own this body by my human nature, but in my human nature, it doesn't give me any more special rights than someone else's human nature because they're essentially of the same nature. And the natural world, I'm not nature, I'm not God. So I understand my place. Like I can't decide what everybody's rights are because I'm not God, I'm not nature. But what people in power want to do, or people who want power want to do, is ultimately be nature. Take control of the technology to help achieve their means of, well, world domination, whatever. Sounds like a little kid's dream, like, oh, I want to rule the world, but like it's essentially childish. It's like, hey, people in the real world, real men, we're real human beings. We care about freeing ourselves, being responsible and taking control of our lives and having our kids be self-responsible. It's like, hey, kid, do you want to be bullied or do you want to be the bully? The answer is neither. You want to, own yourself. You don't want to be bullied. So you don't want to condone violence and you don't want to commit the violence. And that is essentially what it is when you understand abolitionism or slavery. Is you're saying, hey, no one deserves to be a slave master, but also no one deserves to be a slave. So do not tread on me, but do not tread on anyone, to add to that flag. Because the problem with that flag is it's an old flag and it doesn't have a website on it. And what I did essentially was take an old model of, a flag, which anybody can create, and just put a website on it because now it leads people somewhere. Imagine the Do Not Tread on Me flag had a website in the corner or somewhere it brought people information. Of course, they didn't have that back then, but imagine it did, and it taught people what freedom was. There'd be a lot more people who understand what it is. But nowadays, we can kind of merge these ideas. Action is one that we have to take as human beings because we created the system so we can tear it down. So it's one that we have to be very creative with. Right? I'm not adding anything new into existence. All I'm saying is, here, look at reality, look what already exists. So really, this movement is different from any other I've ever seen. I mean, there's nothing that's going to go over nature as a whole. It's going to look at some aspects like, oh, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of that, but what about the whole, the holistic, right? And so I kind of just made a blueprint essentially for a movement. And again, it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be with me. That's another problem with a lot of movements of the past is they focus on one person or a select few group of individuals. Since when is it about the person? A movement is about the ideas. That's why when somebody like Gandhi dies, the whole movement dies. And it's like, wait, what happened? And now India's turned into super corruption again because nobody carried the ideas that Gandhi had with them into saying, okay, well, we still have to be the teachers, the arbiters to deliver that information out to everybody and continue it through the generations. So this flag, and if we can accomplish the 4 steps as I mentioned to abolitionism, is simple enough to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where we stand. And the media can see it. The media sees all the attention on this one town that is saying, no, we're not going to do something. And people can see that flag and they see the website in the corner and they go to that website and they can do the same action steps. They can see why those people are doing what they're doing. And then if that's successful and other towns also go on, and even if it isn't successful, it's still successful because people will realize how much their government is tyrannical and how they're willing to use their own people against their own people, supposedly own people. It's not their own people. And they'll see the hypocrisy and data and just right in the front of their lives that the government is willing to take their armed thugs to this town of peaceful people who don't want to pay taxes, who don't want to participate in the status system because they think they're the people. They think they're the government, so they can do what they want with their lives. But no, the government has to step in and say we're in charge, using their sheep, their slaves, to do the bidding for them. And to say, well, you need to be under control. Essentially, these police are just turning off their minds, turning off their conscience and saying, yeah, I'm just going to follow orders. It's my job. It's my duty. Oh, these guys are acting unlawful. Oh, they're acting illegally. Not looking at morality, not looking at who's got the right, not looking at what's natural or intended for humanity. And you know what? It might come down to some of that conflict, but you know what? Like I said, the town will win at the end of the day, and people will see that flag, and that flag will last through the generations. People will see why they did what they did, and they will see the information. That information with technology will last forever, and people can see exactly what happened with their own eyes thanks to technology. Technology should be a freeing tool. It's just a tool. It can be used for anything, good or bad. But if we keep allowing power to grow, and we keep allowing statism, then technology will be the most dangerous thing we'll ever see. The second government, I
Yes.
call it.
Yep. This is the government under the government.
Yeah, well, it is. It can be even and more than that, depending on how human consciousness is going. According to, of course, my own observations of it, I think it's still in very early stages. I would have liked to see a lot more writers back then talking about the effects of technology, but they couldn't have seen it coming because of how fast it's grew over the past few decades. But I mean, hey, look, we're talking right now through technology. We're getting this message out through technology. It's a powerful thing. And I keep talking about how human beings are powerful. Like, no wonder. Yeah, because we create powerful things too. We have that power to not just be powerful ourselves, but to create something that's powerful because we are powerful. And if we use it, you have to realize that everything that is around you is made with some sort of level of creativity. Somebody had to think of it. Somebody had to come up with the idea and say, wow, we can use this, we can use that. Oh, well, if we do this, we can make that. That's innovation. And I think that's important. That's why I created the movement, because, well, honestly, from a young age, I've always, wanted to be an inventor, so to speak. And I realized that people can take my inventions and they can use it for bad purposes. I'm like, I don't know if that's even a good idea. But what if, you can make something that can actually help change the world? And so I studied over 100 different books in 1 month of how do you change the world and movements and stuff like that, and looked at the past movements and saw why they succeeded. Some of them, of course, may have been controlled, funded by different places, funded against each other, opposition, what have you. But essentially, there's a reason why people follow movements. And when they turn political, that's the problem. It's anytime you get the government involved, you always cause a problem. And this would be, to a lot of people, this would start to make sense if you just look at the events in history. Once they get involved, they get their tentacles involved, everything starts to go downhill, even if everybody thinks it's a good idea at first. And that's the thing. They need to sell it to people. They need to sell their model of the world to people, and they need to indoctrinate them. And what's funny is that we're kind of just de-indoctrinizing them. We're not indoctrinating them with anything new. We're like, hey, there's nothing new under the sun. Here's nature. Yeah, you already know what it is. Like, like trees outside, but guess what? There's also your nature, because I'm not asking for people to go outside, go live in the woods, or, be primal and do anything like that. I'm not asking for that. When I say nature is the answer, what I'm saying is the knowledge of nature is the answer. I'm saying that knowing who you are, what you are meant to be, is the answer. I'm saying the nature of all things, from the nature of the world to the nature of yourself, is the answer. And if you leave out any part of that, it's like leaving out the micro as part of the macro. It's like you said, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. If you leave out the micro, you might forget a good part of what makes up the macro. You want to understand the world, then you got to understand the micro just as much as the macro to understand both in each other. So life is reflective like that. You put that energy out there, you'll receive it. I met you. I met a lot of great people because I decided to put my time and energy into this work. I never expected to get to where I am. Never expected to make a movement. Never expected to take this idea like nature is the answer and say, hey, what if I can make this movement? It's like, mostly I created that, again, out of moral obligation, because who else was going to do it? I didn't see anybody else who was going to do it. I'm like, hey, if a movement's necessary because we need to bring people together, then that's what I'm going to create. And so at least I can do is make a blueprint, or at least I can do is create the conversation that has never been talked about, at least not talked about enough. So I do think the action steps are really simple. And like I said, all it takes is one town or some community. And having other movements like the Common Law Assembly can help in that process. But I think even Freedom Cells can do it. Problem with Freedom Cells, which is an organization started by Derek Bros. It's very great. It helps people get together, but that's all they have. They only have one aspect: integration or networking. It's just bringing people together. But what about the knowledge? What about the education? They don't have a central idea to say, this is what we stand for, this is what we're teaching people. So everybody's kind of like on their own thing, doing their own thing, and they all kind of lack communication with each other and enough organization to say, like, here we can make a difference. But they have a network, which is great. But what you have to tie that in, though, with representation using some sort of symbol, flag, or shared material, and knowledge, education. There needs to be an emphasis on, like, let's talk to the people in the dark. Let's not just meet up with people who already think like us. Let's reach out to the people who don't think like us, who are completely new to this information. Because I just said I never expected to get into any of this. Did you expect to get into any of this knowledge, to find, any of us? Like, it's amazing. But a little seed can go a long way, because people, as they realize the world gets worse and worse, they start to wake up and say, yeah, maybe there's more to things, and I got to look deeper into it. And oh, this person told me something about it. I got to look into it now. Oh, like, oh, this person was warning me that this was coming, and I thought they were wrong. But like, man, my whole life is turned upside down, and everything was taken from me or whatever. And now I finally understand. Like, it takes sometimes wake up calls for people to get something. And for some people, it's easier than others. But at the end of the day, it's just as simple as understanding your nature. No matter, it takes, like I said, it takes some time to get through those illusions, but you're abolishing what doesn't belong. You're ripping through it, and you're just finding out what is that reality. And we can approach closer and closer. We can never say we know it all. We can never say that we should tell everybody that we know it all. I'm not claiming I know it all. I'm just a fellow teacher, right? You're just a fellow teacher. We're just fellow human beings. And that's all we can ever do. That's why I'm not the movement. Everybody's the movement. That's why I say you're the movement. We're all the movement. Think this is voluntary. I'm not telling you join us. Like, anybody can join us upon their contribution. That's their joining. They don't have to sign anything. They don't have to give me their address, whatever. Their contribution is them sharing the movement themselves, them being the movement, educating others. That's it. So I
And
just use the website as a means to say, hey, go to this website and you'll learn about natural law. There's a learn button and an action button. That's it. Like, how simple could I make it?
and I want to add that I like the way you express things, because it's pretty clear now. I knew these things there, but you phrased it perfectly. It's like everybody can understand it, and everybody can realize it too. To be ready to look at yourself in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and to face this this hand that are keeping us from moving forward. And I just wanted to add something about you brought up nature, in that nature in itself, there's no slavery there. Okay, every beings are living into a symbiosis with the universe, with nature, with the earth, with the divine mother. And this connection there, if it's severed from an individual, this will lead them to slavery,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no separation there. Okay, the nature, we are nature. Okay, nature is us, and we are nature, and nature is spirit. So everything is coming from as our what you have inside. I'm not telling you that you're building the world around you. That's not what I'm saying. You're this is part. And I don't want to go too much into moral relativism, because I'm having a podcast with Brendan about this,
Yeah.
and we're gonna go full. And I
Perfect.
I always, like, when you were talking, I was it's moral relativism and all these things
Mm-hmm.
there that I have a huge impact on what you're
Yes,
doing.
it's confusion of nature. It's like essentially saying that knowledge is just unknown, can never be known, and everything is just up in the air. So essentially, truth is up in the air, and humans are just in a perpetual state of confusion. They can never really know anything. That's essentially the really big problem with moral relativism, other than the fact that if you impose that, of course, and say, well, it should be law and it should be dictated upon everyone, because there's no higher standard of morality, because everything is just man made, and therefore, don't look at nature, don't look at anything that relies on purpose or value or meaning, because that leads to a natural morality, as I like to call it, not objective morality, because I think that can confuse some people, but a natural morality to say, hey, we have conscience, we have empathy. There's a 1% of people who maybe don't, and they're called psychopaths, and that's because of different reasons, upbringing, etc., that conflict with their natures and cause confusion within themselves, to the point where they don't understand themselves and they need to take it out on others, and they have guilt and they need to hide that guilt, and a bunch of psychological things you can get into. Even Carl Jung said, great psychologist, said, like, hey, state slavery is a thing. He talked about mental slavery. I mean, the amount of people who've talked about the same things I just talked about, I mean, would surprise you. More than half of my book on Slavery Gone for Good is just former quotes from abolitionists who all understood slavery more than what people thought these abolitionists originally thought. Like, people may just think, oh, they were fighting chattel slavery. No, they were fighting other forms of slavery. And that is understanding political slavery, economic slavery, other forms. And they all kind of tie into each other. They're all the subjugation of an individual against their will. Or, like I said, the claim of ownership of somebody against their will, or the claim of ownership over their rights, their property, something that belongs to them. So you can relate that to taxation. You can relate that to permits and licenses. I did a video, 5 main reasons. It was an interview. 5 main reasons why we're still enslaved. I encourage people to check it out if they want more information. But I also did a video on must-see, the 4 steps to total freedom, which goes into how what knowledge is necessary and how we actually achieve it. And again, I'm just a fellow messenger. I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but based on my understanding, my research, my knowledge of the things that I've observed and people I've talked to and different movements I've also looked at, that is the direction that humanity can take. And I say can because, again, I want that conversation open. I'm looking for criticism. I want people to look at my stuff and say, hey, this can improve, or, oh, I would do this different. Well, hey, you're the movement, right? You can do it. Like, don't rely on me. Don't rely on us to be the teachers, to be the facilitators. There's a whole world of people out there, and you're one of them. It's not like I'm the one who has to decide everything. Hey, in a free world, nobody gets to decide how everything works. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for a world where people can be free, and nobody's will is being imposed. So now I think we can kind of tie this into anarchism, because a lot of people might say, well, if you want a world that's free and sovereign and everybody's free, well, why not just say you're an anarchist? I'll tell you why. There's many reasons. I have a whole video about it. It says why abolitionism is preferable to holistic anarchism or voluntarism. In particular, when you say anarchism to the average person, they're going to think, oh my gosh, you're for chaos. Oh, you're a communist, you're a socialist. Or even they may think, oh, you're a capitalist, or, oh, you, or this or that. And it distracts away. No matter what, it always leads somewhere where you're not talking about morality. It's not clear. It's not concise. If you mention you're an abolitionist, somebody's going to be like, what? It causes surprise and the confusion because they don't know what it really means. Or maybe they have heard of it from the 1800s and they'll know what it means. So essentially, you have a much better shot there when you say that, because you're getting a surprise reaction, which means they're open now to new information, or a reaction that says, hey, I already know what you're talking about, slavery. Right. But they might think chattel slavery. You can say, hey, that was just chattel slavery. But abolitionists were also talking about other forms. You can, educate them a little bit. But anarchism would take a lot more education to get through and say, hey, you have to break down the word anarchon just means no rulers, not no rules. It's essentially the same thing as saying abolitionist. You're saying there should be no rule. Again, negation, abolish. You're saying no rulers, no slavery. Same deal. No masters, no slaves, no presidents, no ministers. To go through the whole
anarchy
list
is denying authority.
Yeah, it's the abolitionism of government. That's essentially what anarchy is. In some quotes actually from the past also said directly that. So it's like, I'm not the first one. Even Leo Tolstoy wrote a whole book on it after the abolitionist time, like right after, when he visited America, called The Slavery of Our Times, where he talks about how law creates slavery. And you can't have slavery without law. And Salmon Chase, who was in the law system, says, private force is not enough to create slavery, let alone maintain it. You have Lysander Spooner, who says, well, slavery, the Civil War was just a false pretense to end slavery, just to keep the other forms of slavery that was already present. Like, I'm not twisting their words. There's a lot of people who use the word abolitionism for like veganism or ending the prison system and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you realize that's not what the original abolitionists were doing. I'm like, it's fine with me. I don't care. They're using the same term, but it's like, that's not really abolitionism. So if people want to say I'm twisting their words, I'm holding more true to their words than a lot of other people who are using that term nowadays. And I think it's becoming pretty popular, especially in my community, because people are seeing how effective it is or how simple it is. Like, once you focus on slavery, like I said, all the answers come into place. You ask someone, say, hey, what is slavery? Are they going to say, oh, it's chaining someone up to a wall? It's like, no, it's more than that. It's subjugation. It's control by another individual. That's it. It's really easy to understand. It doesn't require like, oh, here's natural law and here's the principles and here are all the operations and oh, spontaneous order. This is how society works. Without this, this, and that, and you need to have free market, and this market operates this way. And oh, the most dangerous superstition. Here's statism, a belief system that needs to be deconstructed. It's like to me sometimes it's a little too complex for the average person who yes needs to understand that, but they need to get there. And to get there, they already have some understanding what slavery is. And if statism really is just mental slavery, then why not just hit it at the nail? If natural law is really just freeing people from slavery, why not just get to the root cause? If we're all just freeing ourselves from a form of slavery, because the first government was the first form of slavery, because law is what creates slavery, and we understand that's what it is, to say someone has more rights than you, or to claim ownership over your life, or to claim to be an authority over you, if we understand that is what it is, then why not just say that's what it is? Why not just focus on that? And that's why, I have a clip on my channel. Mark Passio says, I'm an abolitionist. I'm like, I didn't expect that to come out of his mouth. And maybe it's because I gave him a copy of my book. I don't know. But he said that. And I'm like, wow, I haven't figured to clip it because he was talking about all sorts of different political spectrums. And he's like, I'm an anarchist. You know what? I'm actually an abolitionist. I'm like, that's kind of
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah. And it's because I'm kind of using that as a means to just bridge the ideas. Like I said, I'm not twisting their words, and it's something that says an action. It's not an ideology. When people think anarchism, this is the other point. They don't just think chaos and perceive of it wrongly at first. They also think of it as an ideology. Abolitionism is not an ideology. It's an action. It's saying, I want to abolish something. So you're not identifying as anything. I'm not identifying as an abolitionist. Like, what does that mean? I'm a no person? Like what? Like, it's like, it doesn't really make sense. Like if I say I'm an anarchist, it's like, essentially I'm promoting nature. I'm promoting the natural world, the free state of human beings, if they're meant to be free. So I'm essentially just promoting nature as well. But like abolitionism says, this is the action that needs to be done. You need to abolish slaves from slavery, or abolish the systems that create the slaves, or allow any slavery or any violence or any coercion or any theft. It's all forms of slavery. It's all forms of theft. It's all forms of rights being violated. It's all forms of violating ownership. So if you can connect all these ideas because they're all related, it's really simple to understand right versus wrong. And that's why moral relativism falls apart, because slavery you can consent to. You can consent to slavery. You can be a voluntary slave, but that does not mean that slavery is right. Just because it's consensual, it does not mean it's meant for a human being.
It's not because it was slavery is running for 1,000 of years that it's right.
Yeah, just because everybody did it, just because you're born into it. Yeah, exactly. And the abolitionists, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of them did not participate in the systems of politics to get change, because they knew the government was what created slavery and allowed it, and they're like not letting the slave masters, they don't want the slave masters to free their slaves. The slave masters essentially own their own little local governments over their slaves. Like they're like local governments, every slave master, and there was a lot of them over every plantation. So you had like essentially small local governments, kind of like what all the minarchists and all the libertarians want nowadays, right? But again, it's something that it's like, okay, so you choose a new master, you choose a new plantation, but you're still a slave. No matter what, you're still a slave. It's still slavery. No matter if you choose a new slave master, if you decide, oh, well, this guy treats me better, or this guy treats me worse. Why should these guys be treating you like that in the first place? They shouldn't even have that power. It's kind of scary to think somebody has the power to do violence to me at any time. Doesn't that sound pretty scary to you? To give anyone that ability to say, hey, they can at any time, at any moment, take you out of your house, bring you to a cell at any moment, force you to get vaccinated at any moment, because they decide and they write it on a fancy piece of paper, and people are stupid enough to obey those orders and say, yeah, well, I'm just doing my job. I'm doing my duty. And if I don't, I can't feed my kids. It's like ego. It's like, don't care about morals. That's moral relativism. Again, it's just really a disregard for morality. It's not even moral relativism that's the problem. It's just the disregard for morality. It's just the exceptions to basic morality. I think that is a way better way to look at it, because moral relativism and objective morality can cause a lot of confusion. And it's just easier to just talk about general basic morality. Everybody generally knows violence is wrong. Slavery is wrong. But like, if you tell them 200 years ago, everybody thought slavery was right. And it's like, well, how did we know that? Again, it's because how do we know that it's wrong now? It's because we evolved morally, consciously. We recognize like these are just human beings. So can't we do the same thing with cops? Can't we say like, hey, beyond their uniforms, beyond their badges, beyond these politicians and their uniforms and their titles, they're just human beings. So why should they treat us in a way that we can't treat them? Like, why can they tax us and we can't tax them? You know, how come they can do things that if we did would be seen as criminal and bad, but if they do, it seems as legitimate and right and necessary and dutiful and very, you know, patriotic, the terms they use to legitimize their slavery.
So I want to play the devil's advocate there for a moment.
Sure.
What if abolitionism has been made by the same people who are the enslavers?
Good point.
What about controlled opposition?
Good point. So it's a movement of the past. It definitely could be used by the enslavers. I said a quote before that, you know, some of the abolitionists were against a war. They were against the idea of the government using like this whole notion of, wow, we're free now. Oh, we freed the slaves. We're great. We're moral. Our society is free now, as a way to say to the public that they're not enslaved in other means. You see what I mean? They create a picture in the minds of the people after the Civil War that, oh, we ended slavery, we're the moral government, we're the North, you know, we ended the horrors of this horrible institution, and now we are free, they can live among us. And now they start adding taxation, they start adding all these things without telling people, they start all these agreements, Black's Law Dictionary, changing all these terms, and people don't know about it because they were still under a government. So they were still technically under slavery, because I'm saying all government is slavery. So some of the abolitionists knew this, yes, and other abolitionists may have fell for it, sure. But there were a lot of abolitionists, some of the most influential ones, who were against all of it. They were against the war. They were against the pretenses of the war, like the media, because they were censoring them. It was true. Like the Liberator, which I'm bringing back, is the Liberator 2 newspaper. And I want people to contribute. For everybody out there watching, you can definitely contribute to my abolitionist newspaper if you want. And it's all public. It's all free. It's all educational. And that people can print it. They can share it online. It's going to be great. There's already a lot of writers, and it's all universal. Applies everywhere. Their motto back then was, our countrymen are all mankind. Our country is the world. I mean, how is that not applicable to understanding that we're all just human beings, don't deserve to be ruled over by people who proclaim to have more rights than us or special titles? So anyways, yeah, to go back to your question, I totally get it. But if you understand what I'm saying, it's like they created that image in the minds of people like, oh, well, we're the government. We're here to save all the chattel slaves. We're here to step in and act as the moral victors, to act as the people who really care about our people. You see what I mean? When in reality, the abolitionists were like, they didn't want the government to get involved. They didn't want a war. They didn't want any of that. The government stepped in so they can still have their power, because they knew if they kept hold of that slavery that was keeping all their economic ties together, they wouldn't have their government any longer. That's why they had to add taxation and other means of control for people. And still around the world, you still have chattel slavery, but it's not as much as we have it today, because people see it as generally wrong. You know, you're not going to see it in America that much, but you're still going to see it some places. But you're going to see a lot of other forms of slavery if you start looking for it. You know, political slavery is the most obvious one. The idea that somebody has more rights than you and can tell you what to do with your life. I have a list of abolitionist anarchists. You know, do you want to just call yourself that? Sure. But I think abolitionist is fine for me, because I'm ending slavery. That's what I'm doing. I think that's adequate for what we're trying to do. We're saying I'm the master of myself. Period. The only other master other than me is nature or God or the laws of nature or what have you, right? The intelligence. It's not, can't be anybody else. Only I can breathe for myself, as Frederick Douglass says. There's a quote from Frederick Douglass where he talks about mental slavery, and it's like perfect. He says, you know, the slave must know no higher law than his master's will. People always leave that part out of his quote. They say the first part of his quote and they leave the last part, which is that part I just read. Like it's fantastic, and people need to read a lot more of what these abolitionists said. I have a whole compilation in my book, and I go over each definition of every word, from ownership, responsibility, to the act of slavery, to the condition of slavery. mental slavery to physical slavery, the two forms that comprise of all the other forms. And from there, you have an understanding of really basic morality, of really basic your nature, of basic responsibility, enough for anybody. I think even kids can understand it. It's like, don't take
Sure.
a toy from another kid because it's like it's their toy. It's like, or share with them to be polite. It's like it's like really basic. But like in today's world, it's like, yeah, I want to tax my neighbor and force him by violence to do something that I want done for my benefit.
Are you talking about democracy?
Yeah, I mean, it's any government. I mean, people want other people to do their bidding for them. Their will, have their will be done upon everybody else, their ego, in place of everybody else. And again, that's always going to exist. There's always going to be people looking for power. But the difference is when you have statism or people saying that's okay, that's when it becomes dangerous. It's like saying, well, this violence, it's violence, but it's okay because he's doing it, and it's not okay because he does it. But it's the same action. The action is the same. Violence is being done in both scenarios. I wouldn't want to see violence being done at all to anybody. I don't care who they are. I might not even like the guy that much. I'm like, hey, I still don't want him to be violated upon because I understand he's a human being. And like you said, we're all part of the creator. We're connected. We're all part of nature. So why wouldn't I feel sympathy for this guy? Why can I not see that this guy might learn actually from an interaction and say, hey, I need to be more careful. I need to be more responsible. If we were to free all the prisoners to this day, to say, let's go free, all the communities would have to be responsible to take care of where those prisoners are going. Say, hey, we need to end them if we have to. Like, if they're not going to repent, if they're not going to become better people right now and live in our communities safely, I mean, we have to put them to rest. We need to take care of it ourselves. We need to actually take action. We can't just say, policemen do it for me, or this person do it for me.
Yeah.
No, we need to actually figure it out for ourselves, come together as a community and teach each other about what morality is. Nobody's going to teach each other what morality is until people are responsible and obligated to be responsible to teach each other what morality is. The only way you do that is actually by creating a free world. And in order to create a free world, you also have to do that. So it's funny how it works. In order to be free, you have to be sovereign. And in order to be sovereign, you have to be free. So that is a matter, like I said, responsibility to ownership to sovereignty to freedom, which is the end of slavery.
Beautiful. I very, very clear, very straight to the point. And would you agree that slavery, the modern slavery, has been perfected? When you don't need shackles anymore.
Right. You can convince people through the political process that what you're doing is legitimate, and people are there to applaud you. People feel pride in their country, serving their country, saying, yeah, I'm going overseas to fight some people I don't know on their territory for this presumed claim that these people are terrorists and they're bad people and they're doing bad things to us. They just trust the narrative. They follow orders, even though they know that killing people are bad. They will do it because, oh, it's necessary for the greater good. Oh, it's necessary because of this agenda, because this politician said so. It's like, no, this politician's going to, number one, he's going to sit back. He's going to take your money, for his living, his career. And he's going to tell you to go to war. He's not going to go to war himself. And you're going to be just a pawn, a little soldier that they're going to use and dispose of easily and replace you within seconds because they don't care about you. They use you for their agendas of control so they can continue their control. They rely on the army and the police, the people who are law enforcements, in order to have man's law to begin with, because otherwise it's not man's law unless man is backing it. So natural law needs harmony with man too, but it doesn't need man to back it because it's nature's laws. Nature backs it through karma, through our effects, through what happens, and we learn. Smack in the face. It's like, oh shoot, nature, it's stinking tough. You ever go out into the wild and have to see all the wild stuff out there? I mean, nature is not like, I'm not saying it's this beautiful place or utopia. I'm not saying anarchy is utopia or anything like that, or freedom's utopia, or abolitionism is utopia. Again, it's just speaking to ending slavery, and that's a process. It's hardship. I think I said there's a lot of benefits to it, meeting you and getting involved and realizing you're free and all the innovation benefits you get after that. It's incredible. So we shouldn't be afraid of our freedom, because that's something that they definitely want us to be afraid of. It's just our basic freedom.
Exactly.
Again, and to twist freedom, with chaos and instead of order. I mean, that is the biggest mind warp that they've ever done onto us. And by they, of course, I mean our own parents, complicit with the governments, complicit with, just people, because government is just people. It's just a bunch of people and a bunch of buildings. So that's just people being complicit with evil or being deceived by evil. And deception,
Coercion.
yes, will always exist. Deception will always exist. But as long as statism exists, then deception will always grow. Evil will always grow. That's the difference.
As long as there's like crass ignorance and infantilization of the masses and confusion and all these cultures that are polluting our minds. And when I'm
Religions.
talking about cultures, I'm talking about everything you have in your country, your your um your neighborhood, the religions, the institution of education, and then you have the repression of the parents that live into this constant state of victimization. Because and that's why I told you earlier that the task is huge, just to make people realize that they're, like you said earlier, sovereign being.
Yeah.
As such, because people, there's, I don't know who did this experiment, but I think it's Mark Passio. He asked to people if they're owning their own bodies, and people hesitated. This is how deep the schism is. Really, it's like a denial of
Yeah. It's
consciousness, the
abdication.
denial of sovereignty.
Again, so that's where the refusal is used for a negative purpose.
Yeah.
Abolition of the truth, abolition of nature. And it's just like funny because you can say, oh, well, I'm a slave to nature. Then it's like, you're not really slaved at all, because slavery is a man-made condition. You can say you're a slave to nature, but you can't escape that. You can escape slavery from man. Another thing to mention is that, voluntarism is, another form of anarchism. Again, it's an ideology I don't think is as effective as abolitionism. And people like to focus on economics, and they get wrapped in economics all day long with communism, capitalism, and it just distracts from morality. It distracts from slavery. They forget about it. They ask about, all these complicated economic stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like they lose a hold of why they're actually doing what they're doing. It's because of some sort of right, of some sort of righteous cause, purpose, intention, value, meaning. But people rather look at the technical, detailed, scientific way of things. Oh, because you can't prove meaning and value and purpose through science. You can't prove empathy through science. Yeah, because guess what? That's what makes us human. Some things are so human and so natural that you're not supposed to prove it through science and materialism and through your fancy materialist, experiments and oh, this book proves this and this book, oh, according to my research, and if you can't prove that, where's your scientific paper? Like, I'm asking if you have a conscience. Okay, that is developed reason that you get by experience, by hurt, by getting harmed yourself, by not wanting to see other people harmed themselves. That's something that everybody has. Some people suppress it. They're called psychopaths. Some people hide it. Some people, they do all sorts of things with it. And our society is reflective to those psychopaths who are running our lives.
Yes.
And that's why people feel like they don't own themselves, or feel like morality doesn't matter, and feel like all these topics are just useless. So don't mistake it. There's a reason why the philosopher Aristotle himself has been undermined in our current education system, because he was talking about value and purpose and meaning, and they took that out. They started talking about all these other philosophers, and they got into their heads and said, Aristotle's wrong. Aristotle, he's wrong. Yeah, purpose, you can't prove that. Oh, that's bias. So how about the humanity? How about there is a purpose we're trying to achieve? Otherwise, there's no purpose of evolving, of making ourselves better, of saying that we are trying to achieve something in this life. And then you wonder why so many kids nowadays are depressed and have all these mental ailments. And, I've had to deal with that in school with other people. And it's like, really? But I think it's part of the reason why I have a family structure. I don't like to talk about it that much, but like I was raised in a family, like a full family, always together all the time, and I think that formed a lot of my morality. It helped form who I am, my reason.
Hmm.
And when you don't have those basic fundamentals, there's a reason why your reason is probably not that reasonable, or you lack empathy, you lack conscience, or might have confusion as to what that is, because you got to find it. And I'm not saying that you can't find it, or that just because you didn't have a back upbringing that you can't find it, or that because I'm better than you because I have it. No, I'm saying that there is a natural need to have your parents with you because they're your parents. They made you and they're supposed to support you in what you're doing and be there. And some people feel like, oh man, my parents won't support me. Oh, they're not there with me. And, I don't talk to them that often. I mean, that's a sign of a world that is also more detached from nature. Because look at
Yes.
any tribe in nature, they're not going to leave their families for a second. It's like they understand they're spiritual people, and they understand like the simple importance of family, which is like very basic. It's not all that complex. It's just respecting your family, and I know kids, you have kids and stuff like that, and that teaches you life lessons too. So even if you don't have like a family background, once you get married or once you find love, I mean, of course, that's going to help you too. I feel like in a lot of ways. Every
Yeah.
life is a lesson. Everything you can learn from. That's if you are willing to learn from it. If you're patient enough and willing to go through that experience, that journey.
And
Um,
I just wanted to get onto that, and we're talking about truth here. Okay, so the thing is uh, we have to align with truth, and I'm never gonna say it enough. Truth is fairly simple. Usually, they are in the opposites of one another. They are polar opposites. That's where you get the truth, because there's no gray zones there. Is it slavery or it's not slavery by the definition? Is it truth or is it not truth? People will ask me, what truth? I'm telling them, when you go out and you wake up in the morning and you go out and you see this tree, okay, this is the truth there. You can see the beautiful mountains, the sun, and your family. You have a family, you're close to with them, and that is truth. This is the way that humans are. We have here in Canada, it's so bad that our elderly people are treated like garbage, and it's the most offensive thing that the society can do. Is we are enslaving our enslavers. This is how deep it is. This is how scary it is. And I think you brought us a good understanding, clear understanding of what can we do, and not
mhm.
only describing the prison walls, and
Yes.
what can we do about it. I think most people here who understand English will get it easily, because it's beautifully worded. I appreciate the work you're doing. You're doing something for um, liberating people in their minds and their bodies. But it start off with desire.
Yeah.
You have to desire it. You have to desire to, like, confront all these lies that you are made of first. All the cultural things, and the Stockholm syndrome that people have,
Hmm.
this slave master mentality mindset that
Yep.
we have inside. And when you do that, this is self-respect, this is self-love, and you're doing not only for you, you're doing for the people around you, because you're gonna shine this beautiful knowledge onto them by your by your actions and your deeds. Because you can talk all day long and preach at the shore, but if you do nothing to prove it, if you don't get into the action, it's worthless. It's all new words. And when
Yeah.
you're talking about Facebook and we're talking about other social media, yeah, it makes things easy. We have YouTube, you have live feeds and things like that. That is beautiful. But if people don't understand the knowledge, if people don't have the desire, it's not gonna do anything. So it's this is where you're getting, this is where you have with your work, you take the heavy stuff and then you made it lighter for everybody to understand it. And even I have French people that are gonna listen to this, and it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. So
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, that's why I created the book as well. It's like easy to read. It's very concise and to the point.
where is it? I had
And
this picture. I had this picture up.
yeah, and I have it in the background too of my room here, and
Where
it's
can we
very
get it?
small, very simple. You know,
Ju-
like it's not a very big book on purpose because I made it for teachers and students alike. It's
If
just
if I want if I want the book, where can I get it?
so I have it on Amazon and other platforms as well, and in every format too, pretty much. So you can check it out there. I have a landing page on nita.one/truth. So that's nita.one/truth. Or just look up "Slavery Gone for Good: Modern Abolitionism." So
I'm gonna
"Slavery Gone
put
for
up
Good."
this site because this is the part there where you can get all the information.
Yeah,
Pretty easy to navigate through. It's a pretty website.
yeah. I made it very simple on purpose. You know, it's like I said, the intention's got to be clear. And I want encourage everybody to do their own part. I don't want to make it super fancy with all these graphic designs and stuff because I want people to do that. I want people to come up with creative art designs and their own way of sharing the message. That's why I want to encourage it. So I would like to definitely see it grow more in the future. Among other movements, you know, like you said, it's something where it's like you're constantly trying to improve. I am always getting myself involved with as much as I can to share the truth. So that means other movements and other people's networks and groups. And it's like, the truth is the truth. You know, it doesn't matter where you share it. You can be on YouTube, Facebook, as long as the truth is being put out there. That's all that matters. And hey, how do you learn about the alternative platforms in the first place? Probably through a mainstream platform. You know, a lot of people might be like, well, why are you on YouTube? It's like, yeah, because the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter. And I think people should use that opportunity to share philosophical information on those mainstream platforms because they're not going to censor philosophy or really basic ideas of nature. And that's why when you if they start censoring ideas such as nature, you know you have a problem. But they don't because you know they want people focusing on the main daily news, the stuff that rises to the surface. I'm saying to people they need to look deeper and they can actually talk about it on online. And having a movement will end all online censorship because people will be grounded and together in real life. People don't realize how important this is, but like that's an end to all censorship. That's a guaranteed way of creating freedom, of bringing people together, of educating others, of finding people in the dark. Even if you do something on the street, I'm not saying protest because protests definitely don't do really anything. All they say is like, "Whoa, we're have a bunch of signs, we're causing a bunch of noise." Like I'm saying, if you're on the street, like doing interviews or educating people, that's different. Um, then you could reach out to potentially new minds, or you can have a simple flag, like instead of having like a political campaign sign on your lawn or whatever. A lot of people do that, which is not universal and not timeless and about one person and their ideas. You can have a flag or sign or whatever with a bunch of ideas that are universal and timeless that last forever and will always exist. I mean, it's that to me sounds way better.
Yeah, well, I we are at 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's what I told you. It's really like it's going really fast.
Yeah.
I want to thank you personally
Hmm.
for being there and sharing this important information. It's never enough, and I encourage people to go see the sites and go see the little the short videos for the explanation for words, and they're very enlightening. So
That's on
you'll see
nita.one/series. Sorry, I just want to mention so that people
series
know what that
exactly.
is. nita.one/series, and you'll see I'm doing a video series with my friend Aaron Butler. We're just going through every subject. Also, that's within this book, so you don't need to read the book if you don't want to. You don't have to get it. You know, like I said, I'm doing this all because I care. I want to educate people, so I'm not trying to make a buck out of this. In fact, by putting it on Amazon, it allows me to advertise for it and reach out to new audiences. And a lot of people do like to support me. And it puts a monetary value on it, which allows it to go out into the market. And just to emphasize, if you want to do a voluntary, like you want police people, private police and stuff like that, that's fine. It's voluntary. Okay. But just know that you still are responsible for your own body. At least it's a transaction, though, that you know what's happening. It's not like the government where it's like you're putting trust in people. You don't know to do something you don't know, or you're a mobster and you're like, man, we got to control this whole town. We own this whole land, bro. We're going to like gun down everybody and make sure that they do what we want. Like, no, it's totally different. If it's voluntary in the sense that it's also, moral and, people can understand it with their own conscience and their reason. Listen, society, people are not stupid. They just don't know about statism. They just don't know about government. It's just been in their lives so long that most people just pass it up and they're like, well, it's been here. It's a necessary evil. I guess we must have it. But if you can just integrate these ideas and help teach them, share them, and learn more about them, you'll realize it's really simple at the end of the day. And as time moves forward, humanity can evolve, and you can just teach simple principles to your children. And that goes a long way. They have that for the rest of their life. And they hold that true to their heart. People who learn it later on in life, they're going to be a bit more skeptical because they haven't had it from their basic foundation. So it's very important, to start with kids and to start anytime, really. It's never too late. And if anybody wants to collaborate, I encourage they reach out to me. I will help anybody do anything content creation wise, because I want to, I want people to be out there. And if they want to be part of the movement and they want special resources, maybe I'll mail you stuff. I don't know. I will actually mail people stickers if you want, like stickers for your car or something. I'll do that for free. I don't mind. I'll do anything like that just to help share the word if it helps people out. I'm always looking for opportunities to help people. And like I said, get involved with my summit. Anybody who thinks they're a potential speaker or other people who would be
Yes,
potential speakers. I know that you're going to be on the summit as well. So I
yes,
definitely want people to stay tuned for that. And the newspaper, which is going to have the public involvement. Anybody at any time, they can work on an article. They could even stay anonymous if you don't want to expose your identity. And you can submit an article. I'll even make a video based on your article for you and narrate it and everything. It'll be great. So I'm making
awesome.
making it easy for people to do this work. I want people to do this work because, hey, if you want freedom, you can't just be asking for it or complaining about it. You got to
You're
do
right.
it. You got to show it. Like you said, you got to be the change.
Action. This is what we need. We
Exactly.
need more people on the field, man. It's
Yes.
it's there's not much outside. So this is why the LIBERcast exists. This is why Cory's website exists, and the abolitionism, more modern abolitionism. I'm fucked up the word once again. I need to work on that. It's my French. It's my French side then that's going. So
It's all good.
thank you everyone, and I want to thank you everyone who have listened to it, that got put comment in it. It's on Facebook. It's on Odyssey. It's gonna be on Odyssey maybe tomorrow or something like that. So thank you everyone, and I want to plug to I'm gonna have this Sunday. I'm gonna have a follow up with Scott Gordon, another podcast, and then Wednesday, I'm gonna have Brendan Martin for a conversation about moral relativism and solipsism. So don't miss this. It's gonna be awesome. So
All right.
have a good evening, everyone. Take care. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Thank you, everybody. The LiberCast side.